You know what's worse than bad news? Waiting for it? 3 days. That's how long it's been since Mr. Phuong shook Jack's hand across the dinner table and said, "I'll arrange everything." 3 days of Jack checking his phone every hour. 3 days of Tu Tien jumping at every sound outside, thinking maybe it's him coming back with an update. Then the call comes. Jack's at the farm helping Tu Tien plant the gourd seeds Mr. Phuong brought. It's morning, still cool, and they're working side by side in the comfortable silence of people who have learned to speak without words. Tu Tien's pressing seeds into the soil. Jack's marking rows with string. The phone rings. Jack pulls it from his pocket, looks at the screen. His face changes. "It's him," he says. Tu Tien's hands freeze in the dirt. Jack answers, "Hello? Yes, Mr. Phuong?" A pause, then his eyebrows pull together. "Urgent? Is everything—" Another pause. Yes, of course. When?" He glances at Tu Tien. "Okay, we'll be here. Thank you." He hangs up. "What did he say?" Tu Tien asks, and her voice comes out smaller than she meant it to. "He said he needs to see us today, that something came up. He sounded—" Jack trails off. "Sounded what?" "Worried." The word sits heavy between them. Tu Tien stands up, brushes dirt from her hands. Her mind is already racing. The bank refused him. That has to be it. He went to arrange the money, and they said no. Too risky, or the farm isn't worth what they thought, or some regulation about land purchases she doesn't understand. Or worse, maybe he found another place. Something better. Something that doesn't come with the complication of having to be neighbors with people who need him so badly. Tu Tien. Jack's voice cuts through her spiral. "We don't know anything yet. Let's not assume the worst." But his face says he's assuming it too. They go inside, clean up, wait. An hour later, they hear a car. Tu Tien looks out the window and there's Mr. Phuong parking by the gate. He's alone. No groceries this time, no gifts. Just a leather folder under one arm and something else. Tu Tien squints, a rolled up paper, like a map. Her heart sinks. He's bringing proof he found somewhere else. That's what this is. He's coming to let them down gently, to show them the other property, to explain why it makes more sense. But then she sees his face as he walks toward the house. He's not frowning. He's not apologetic. He's smiling. Not the polite smile you give someone when you're about to deliver bad news. The real kind. The kind that reaches his eyes. Jack opens the door before Mr. Phuong can knock. "Come in, please," Jack says, and Tu Tien hears the careful control in his voice. The bracing. Mr. Phuong steps inside, sets the folder and the rolled paper on the table, looks at both of them. "I'm sorry I worried you," he says. "I know I sounded strange on the phone, but I needed to see you today because—" He pauses, and that smile gets bigger. "Because I couldn't wait any longer to show you this." He unrolls the paper. It's a map, hand-drawn, detailed. Tu Tien leans closer and realizes with a jolt, it's their farm. Every corner of it. The vegetable plots. The fruit trees. The small house. Even Kai's new doghouse is marked in one corner. But there's more. The map extends beyond the farm boundaries they know. There's additional land sketched out. Land that borders their property to the east. A section they've always seen but never thought much about because it belonged to someone else. Mr. Phuong points to it. "That piece," he says, "just came up for sale, yesterday. The owner's moving to the city, needs to sell fast. It's smaller than this farm, maybe a third of the size, but it connects directly to this property." Jack stares at the map. "I don't understand." "I went to the bank 3 days ago," Mr. Phuong explains. "To arrange the purchase of your farm. Everything was approved. The money's ready. But while I was there, the banker mentioned this other plot. Said it had been on the market for months with no buyers. Asked if I knew anyone interested. He traces the boundary line with his finger. I went to look at it yesterday. It's perfect. Small house, needs work, but it's livable. Good soil, water access, and here's the thing. He looks up at them. It's right next to this farm. Literally shares a fence line. Tu Tien's breath catches. You mean? I mean, Mr. Phuong says, what if we didn't do this the way we planned? What if instead of me buying your farm and you moving away somewhere, what if I bought that plot and you kept this one? The room goes silent. Jack speaks first. But the bank loan, we still need... I know. Mr. Phuong opens the leather folder. Inside are papers. Official-looking documents with bank letterhead. The money I was going to use to buy your farm. It's not going anywhere. I'm still giving it to you. Consider it a loan, like we said. No interest. Pay me back when you can. But then, you'd be buying the smaller property and lending us money? Jack's voice is careful. That's not... Mr. Phuong, that's not fair to you. Fair. Mr. Phuong laughs, but it's not a harsh sound. It's warm. Jack, do you know what I've wanted for 20 years? To live next to people I care about. To have neighbors who feel like family. To plant vegetables and share the harvest. To have dinner together without driving an hour. He gestures at the map. This way, we're both building something. Side by side. You keep the land you've worked so hard on. I get a fresh start on my own piece of earth. And we're together. Tu Tien feels something crack open in her chest. The house on that plot, she says quietly. Is it really livable? It needs paint, new roof tiles, some repair work. But yes. Mr. Phuong looks at her. It's a home, Tu Tien. Not as nice as this one yet. But it could be. Jack is staring at the map like he's trying to find the catch. The hidden cost. Walk me through the numbers, he says. Mr. Phuong pulls out a notepad. His handwriting is neat, precise. The kind that comes from years of keeping careful records. The neighboring plot costs 400 million dong, he says. That leaves me 1.6 billion from my compensation. I'm lending you 800 million, enough to clear your bank debt with room for repairs here. I keep 800 million in savings for my retirement and the work I need to do on my place. Jack writes the numbers down on a separate piece of paper. Tu Tien watches him calculate, double-check, calculate again. That would clear everything, Jack says slowly. The bank loan, the mortgage, everything. With some left over, Mr. Phuong confirms, for fixing whatever needs fixing here. Maybe a new water pump. Maybe expanding your vegetable plots for Tu Tien's market business. Tu Tien's mind is spinning. But Dad, you'd be spending everything on the land and the loan to us. What about emergencies? What about... I'm 68 years old, Mr. Phuong interrupts gently. I don't need much. A small house, a garden, good neighbors. The 800 million I'm keeping is more than enough for repairs and living expenses. And when you pay me back, no rush, whenever you can, I'll have that too. He looks between them. This isn't charity. This is family investing in family. You helped me when I was homeless. When I had nothing, let me do this. Jack sets down his pen. Tu Tien can see the conflict on his face. The engineer in him running scenarios, checking for structural weaknesses in the plan. But also something else. Hope, maybe. Or the beginning of belief. The bank, Jack says. They approved the original loan to you for purchasing this farm. Will they approve a different arrangement? Already checked, Mr. Phuong says. As long as I'm buying property, any property, they don't care which one. The loan to you is separate, personal. We'll draw up papers, make it official, but it's between us. And the seller of the neighbouring plot? Tu Tien asks. Are they willing to wait while you arrange everything? Mr. Phuong's smile turns slightly sheepish. I already put down a deposit yesterday. Told them I'd have the full payment within a week. Jack's head snaps up. You what? I know. I should have asked you first. But when I saw that place, Jack, when I walked the property and realized it shared a fence with yours, I couldn't let it slip away. It felt like... He searches for words. Like the answer we were all looking for. The one that doesn't require anyone to sacrifice. Tu Tien finds herself standing, walking to the map, tracing the boundary lines with her finger. 2 properties, side by side. One family's farm, one father's fresh start. A shared fence line that could become a shared garden. Dinners that don't require driving. Help that's just next door. Show me the house, she says suddenly. The one you're buying. Can we see it? Mr. Phuong checks his watch. The seller said I could bring people by any time today. It's only 10 minutes from here. Jack stands too. Let's go. They pile into Mr. Phuong's car. Kai barks from the yard, confused about being left behind. We'll be back soon, Tu Tien calls to him. The drive is short. Down the main road, then a turn onto a smaller path Tu Tien's driven past 100 times without really seeing. The kind of path that looks like it leads nowhere. But it does lead somewhere. To a small house with faded blue paint and a sagging front porch. To a plot of land maybe half the size of Tu Tien's farm, but dense with fruit trees, mango, guava, jackfruit. To a well in the centre of the yard and a chicken coop that's seen better days, but could be rebuilt. They get out of the car. The owner's not here. Gave Mr. Phuong permission to show it. They walk the property slowly. Mr. Phuong points things out. The concrete foundation that's still solid despite the house's rough exterior. The electrical lines that were upgraded 5 years ago. The fruit trees that are mature, producing, just need pruning and care. Tu Tien walks to the eastern edge of the property. And there it is. A wooden fence, weathered but standing. And on the other side, her farm, her vegetable plots, her drying racks for winter melon, her home. From here, she can see her own house through the trees, can see Kai's doghouse, can see the garden she and Jack planted just this morning. We'd be neighbours, she says out loud. Close enough to share tools? Mr. Phuong says, coming to stand beside her. Close enough for you to call if you need help. Close enough for me to walk over for dinner without it being an imposition. Jack's examining the house. Tu Tien can hear him opening doors, testing floorboards, checking roof beams. The engineer assessing structural integrity. Finally, he emerges. It's solid, he announces. Needs work. Maybe 3 months of weekends to get it really comfortable. But it's not falling down. The bones are good. Mr. Phuong nods. I'm not afraid of work. I've got time, and... He looks at Jack meaningfully. I've got a neighbour who knows construction. We could help, Jack says immediately. Weekends, evenings, whatever you need. We could plant gardens together, Tu Tien adds. Share harvests. You could teach me about the fruit trees. I don't know anything about mangoes. She hears herself saying could and would like the decisions already made, like they've already agreed. Maybe they have. They walk back to the car slowly. Mr. Phuong locks up the house. The seller's expecting an answer within 2 days, he says. But he already knows his answer. He's buying it. The question is whether Jack and Tu Tien will accept the loan, accept the arrangement, accept this new version of the future. On the drive back, nobody speaks. But it's not an uncomfortable silence. It's the kind where everyone's thinking the same thing and doesn't need to say it out loud yet. When they pull up to Tu Tien's farm, Jack turns in his seat. Can you give us until tomorrow? He asks Mr. Phuong. Not because we're uncertain, just because this is big. I want to sit with Tu Tien tonight. Talk through everything. Make sure we're seeing it clearly. Of course, Mr. Phuong says. Take all the time you need. I'm not going anywhere. After he drives away, Jack and Tu Tien stand in their yard. What do you think? Jack asks. Tu Tien looks at the garden they planted this morning, at the house they've built together, at the life they've carved out of hardship and hope. I think, she says slowly, that maybe we don't have to choose between keeping our home and helping you clear the debt. Maybe we get to have both. It means owing him money for years probably, Jack says. Maybe a decade. Being in debt to family. That's complicated. He's not a bank. He's Dad. Tu Tien turns to face Jack, and he's not asking for anything except to be close, to be part of this. Jack nods, then softer. What if something goes wrong? What if I can't pay him back as fast as I want to? Then we'll figure it out. Together. All three of us. She takes his hand. That's what family does. That night, they sit at the same table where they shared dinner with Mr. Phuong 3 days ago. Jack's made tea. Tu Tien's brought out the papers, mister. Phuong left. The loan terms written in his careful handwriting, the map of both properties, the bank documents showing his approved financing. Let's go through this one more time, Jack says. Not because I doubt it, because I want to be sure we understand what we're agreeing to. So they do. They calculate monthly payments they can afford. Small amounts, but steady. They talk about what happens if Jack's business has a slow year. They discuss Mr. Phuong's age, his health, what guarantees he needs that they'll honor the debt even if something unexpected happens. We should put it in writing, Jack says. Official contract, repayment schedule, everything documented. He'd probably tell us it's not necessary, Tu Tien says. I know, but we're doing it anyway. Because that's how we protect him and us. They talk until the tea goes cold. Until Kai falls asleep under the table. Until the stars are fully out and the only light is the small lamp between them. Finally, Jack sets down his pen. I think we should say yes, he says. Tu Tien's been waiting to hear those words. But now that they're here, she finds herself hesitating. What is it? Jack asks. I just keep thinking, what if he regrets it? What if 6 months from now, he wishes he'd bought a nicer place somewhere else? What if being neighbours is harder than he imagined? Jack reaches across the table, takes both her hands. Tu Tien, do you remember what he said at dinner? That he's lived alone enough for one lifetime? She nods. He's not choosing this because it's the best property. He's choosing it because we're here. Because family is here. Jack squeezes her hands. And honestly, I think we're the ones getting the better deal. We keep our home, we clear our debt, and we get him next door. Something loosens in Tu Tien's chest. Okay, she whispers. Let's say yes. They call Mr. Phuong in the morning. He answers on the second ring, and Tu Tien realizes he's been waiting, hoping. Dad, she says, we talked all night. We went through everything, and we want to do this, Jack finishes. If you're still sure. The sound Mr. Phuong makes is somewhere between a laugh and a sob. I'm sure, he says. I've never been more sure of anything. The next week moves fast. Mr. Phuong finalizes the purchase of the neighboring property. Jack meets with the bank, presents the loan from Mr. Phuong, clears the debt that's been hanging over them for months. Tu Tien watches the numbers in their account shift from red to black, and she cries. Not from sadness, but from the sheer relief of it. They draw up the loan agreement. Jack insists on including interest. Even if it's small, it's fair. And Mr. Phuong agrees. They set a repayment schedule that's manageable. 10 years, small monthly payments, a clause that if either party wants to renegotiate, they can. This protects both of us, Jack explains, and Mr. Phuong nods. But Tu Tien can see he doesn't really care about the legal details. He just wants it settled so they can move forward. The day Mr. Phuong gets the keys to his new property, they celebrate. Tu Tien cooks. A big meal, the kind that takes all afternoon. Rice, grilled fish, stir-fried vegetables with garlic and ginger, soup with winter melon from her garden. Jack brings Uncle Dong, who wanted to see Mr. Phuong's new place. Even Jack's mother comes, taking a break from her preparations to return to her hometown. They eat on Mr. Phuong's new front porch, crowded around a borrowed table, using mismatched chairs and upturned crates. The house behind them still needs paint. The roof still needs tiles. But none of that matters right now. A toast, Uncle Dong says, raising his glass of tea. To new beginnings, to neighbours who are family, to building something that lasts. They drink. Jack's mother touches Mr. Phuong's arm. You made a good choice, she says quietly. This place, it has good energy. And having Tu Tien and Jack so close, that's worth more than any fancy house in the city. Mr. Phuong nods. I know. After the meal, they walk the property together. Mr. Phuong shows them where he wants to plant new vegetables. Jack points out where a tool shed could go. Tu Tien suggests connecting their two gardens with a gate in the shared fence, so we don't have to walk all the way around every time. I'll build it, Jack says immediately. Uncle Dong offers to help with the roof repairs. Weekends, bring my tools. We'll have it done in a month. They're making plans, building something, together. As the sun sets, people start to leave. Uncle Dong first, then Jack's mother. She hugs Tu Tien tight and whispers, You did good. Finding this solution. You did so good. Finally, it's just the three of them. Mr. Phuong, Jack, and Tu Tien. They stand at the fence line between the two properties. From here, they can see both houses, both gardens, both futures unfolding side by side. Thank you, Mr. Phuong says, for letting me be part of this, for giving me a home that's more than just walls and a roof. Thank you, Jack replies, for finding the path where nobody had to lose. Tu Tien doesn't say anything. She just reaches out, takes Mr. Phuong's hand on one side, Jack's on the other. Three people who found each other through hardship, who chose family over convenience, who built something that holds. In the distance, Kai barks from Tu Tien's yard, probably wondering where everyone went. I should get back, Tu Tien says. Feed the dog. Check on the vegetables. And I should start unpacking, Mr. Phuong says. But none of them move. They stand there a moment longer, watching the last light fade, holding on to this feeling. This knowledge that they did it. They found the way through. Together. Same time tomorrow? Jack asks. We can start on that gate. Same time tomorrow. Mr. Phuong agrees. And that's the promise, isn't it? Not just tomorrow, but all the tomorrows after that. Mornings where they wave to each other across the fence, evenings where they share harvests, years of building and growing and being there when it matters. Tu Tien walks back to her house under a sky full of stars. She feeds Kai, checks the winter melon strips. They're drying perfectly. Waters the gourd seeds they planted what feels like a lifetime ago, but was only last week. And she thinks, this is what hope looks like when it grows up. Not dramatic, not perfect, just steady, just real, just everyone moving forward together. When Jack comes home an hour later, he finds her in the garden. You know what happens next? He asks. What? We build, we work. We pay back the loan month by month. We help Dad fix up his place. We plant more vegetables. We have dinners together. He stops, smiles. We just live the way we've always wanted to. Tu Tien smiles back. Sounds perfect. And it does. Not because everything's solved. Not because there won't be hard days ahead. But because they're facing those days side by side, with family next door, with hope that's earned, not given, with a future they built themselves.